Morning, Steve. Morning, everyone. What's happening? Because it's cold. Because it's cold. That doesn't mean it's not cold. You will live with it long enough to know. Well, New York is chilly, but I will tell you, Michigan was like Trinidad, and Chicago was hot. Let me put it that way. So, I mean, it's just different temperatures a little bit. Morning, Wendell.
Hi, morning, Paul, morning, Steve, morning, Richard,
Morning, Senior Council Wendell Stephen.
morning, Trinidad and Tobago, and good morning, listeners and viewers. Yeah, I'll
Good
take
morning,
that.
Senior.
I'll take that. I'll take that. How are you, gentlemen, doing?
I'm fine. How are you,
I'm
Paul?
all right. You look refreshed.
Yeah,
Ain't that
so
like ain't that like a trip abroad,
well,
Any, regardless of the circumstances.
let's just say JFK. Every time you land, and if you come here 6 months ago, JFK is a maze. It just changes so much all the time.
Yeah, yeah, yes. My
It just
last
changes all the time.
my last visit to JFK was over a year ago. Yeah, over a year ago. April last year, I think. So I'm here. We're happy to be in the land of the living. Belated birthday greetings to Ray Brathwaite. He celebrated his birthday yesterday. And my niece, Denise Stephen, she celebrated her birthday yesterday too. And if you're celebrating her birthday today, as I think a guy who goes by the sobriquet Lioness, I'm not sure what's his name though, what's his actual name, but he is celebrating his birthday today. He is a
Steve, you may want to put on your microphone on your stream feed. People on YouTube say they're not hearing you, but they're hearing you on the app.
I'm not hearing him at all. Is he speaking?
You'll get me on feedback. You see, you'll get that.
No, we'll fix the feedback. Don't worry.
It
Try it again,
sounds like
Steve.
it
All
sounds
right.
like he's attempting to speak.
I
Right.
have no idea. Everything. If they hear me on the app, that means everything's right.
I don't know why they're not hearing him on the normal thing because we're hearing him loud and clear.
No, yeah, no idea. Um, okay.
All right, I'm hearing him.
Yeah.
Yes. So It's chilly in New York. Let me put it that way.
Okay. Chile, still.
Yeah. Hmm.
All right.
I'm being calm by saying it's actually damn cold.
But
A year ago, it
yeah,
actually was pretty cold too, around
but
the same
Kiki
time of the
is
year.
across the pond. Ooh, that is terrible. Where he attended the coronation and he went in
You know,
August last evening.
I looked at that almost in its entirety last evening. It was a beautiful celebration. It was a beautiful occasion, steeped in Anglican tradition, of course, in terms of the service and so on. It was heavily Anglican. But
Hmm.
boy, that there's a lot of how I should put it, pomp and ceremony, a lot of changes, a lot of rituals. But I enjoyed it. I enjoyed looking at it.
But you know the British are good at that.
And you know what was an observation that was made by an American reporter about how close the crowds were to this occasion. They were saying that that will never happen in America. America is about the president in cars zooming by. A president like how the king was in a coach that in case of an emergency cannot just suddenly gallop off. The horses can't suddenly just gallop off and get him to safety. But they are so disciplined in that part of the world that was not a concern. That he had to
Really?
be
In football?
well, football is a different environment,
Okay.
right?
All right.
But I'm
You
talking
see the
about
discipline now.
in the terms of these type of
The
ceremonies.
parades and stuff, they are very disciplined, yes.
Yeah. So it wasn't a concern that he would be riding in this coach for miles at snail's pace without any concern for his safety or anything like that. And the crowds were so disciplined. There were no surges, things like that. People would have heard their normal insults at some point, the anti-king rhetoric, the anti-monarch rhetoric. But still, it was so very well done. And it was in rain, bad, terrible weather in London at the point in time. That people stood there for hours. So a man was there camp out for an entire week just to see this thing, you
Better
know?
than me. But then some of them love the monarch, some of them don't.
Yeah,
Their
yeah,
monarchy, I should say.
that's a fact. That's a fact.
You know, and he went against his late mother's wishes. Camilla is now queen.
Yeah.
There
Well,
were hundreds of memes over the weekend suggesting that side chicks have hope.
well, they didn't just have hope. I mean, that is love.
They have ambition now.
That's love transcends all that. Because remember, he was in love with her, went and married Princess Diana. She was married to Peter Parker Bowles. And after during his marriage to Diana, they still had a relationship. They had a relationship.
According to reports.
Yes, I don't think he denied it. He didn't deny it.
I don't think the relationship possibly ever ended really for a long time.
But yeah, that's
From all
true.
reports, it doesn't seem like the relationship ever really ended for a long period of time.
And you want to believe too that his relationship with Princess Diana spanned two occasions. That's when
In
she
what way?
conceived, when she had her two sons. Right?
I don't know. When I wasn't there.
As a matter of fact, there is talk.
I am not Philip, my dear.
As a matter of fact, there was a rumor going around, and I don't know if you saw it quite recently, that the last son is not his son.
Yeah, there were rumors about the last son being the son of the security guard and all kind of foolishness like that,
Yeah,
but
yeah. I don't
there's
think
no
so.
evidence to support
I
those
don't
kinds
know.
of claims.
He looks too much. He looks too much like Prince Charles. The more he loses his hair, he looks a lot like King Charles. You
I
know?
think we should not even begin to attempt to drag the name of the late princess into disrepute.
Yeah. Well, she did it herself, you know.
How did she do it herself?
Ah, you can't remember
How?
the stories?
No, I don't know. You tell me.
No, well, if you say we won't drag it, I
I
won't.
don't know. And you're making a statement, so you have to substantiate it.
Oh, please. Even in her death. You know, but as I say, their love transcended all in terms of this, and the same love will transcend Prince Harry's relationship with his wife, because they've been ostracized. You understand? Who knows what is going to happen in his future? You know. But Prince William though and Kate, I mean, they are the epitome of a almost perfect marriage and relationship,
Well,
family.
Prince William clearly from understood his birthright from day one, and you can tell the ambition. But to me, I can tell his ambition to be king one day.
Yes, yes,
So he's walking the thin line required to be king one day. You
yes.
can tell that he stood up. There was a concert yesterday, also Lionel Richie, Katy Perry, and many others performed at, I think could be Wembley O2.
Okay.
And he paid tribute to his father in glowing terms. And he has always been the one. He knows that he's the one and Harry is the spare, the heir
Yeah,
and the spare.
yeah.
And he has always walked this thin line. He did just like his dad. He went, but he has 3 children, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
Yes, three.
Yeah,
Yes,
and
three.
and he did what he's supposed to do. He got married to a pretty woman, and he carries himself. He went into the Royal Service, whether it's Air Force or whatever it is. He has all the steps required to be king one day, and more than likely will be king
Yeah,
one
yeah.
day.
And his wife also too, in my opinion, clearly
She carries
understands
herself
her
that way.
role too as a
She
supportive
understands
wife
her role that she'll be
and
queen
queen
one
to
day.
be. Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
and Camilla is not queen consort; she's queen. So Charles
She's queen.
went
Yeah,
away from the wishes of his late mother
yeah,
because she
yeah,
wanted to be
yeah.
queen
She's
consort.
queen.
So,
Yeah,
but I
but
mean,
she would have also done something extraordinary by naming her queen consort. You know, the late Queen
queen no
Elizabeth.
consort
That is.
again. She's queen.
Yeah, she's queen,
She's queen of
and
England.
she. Yep, we have a king and
Gone
a
down in
queen of
history.
England.
The crown and scepter.
Happy for her. And her ex-husband was there too. Eh? He has been very supportive, you know, and he was there.
Well, if you look at the history of the British monarchy, even their great grandfathers, if you had a pretty wife in the village or the town, and the queen wanted your wife for his consort, you didn't have much of a choice, you know.
Yeah.
You could protest and lose your head, or you could quietly take it and cool yourself.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
understand?
Yeah.
If you can really fought and all of them see your wife or your daughter and thing, and they took favor with her, you didn't have much of a choice, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
The king would send someone to fetch your wife or your daughter for an audience. An audience with the king. And the king would have would grant your wife or your daughter an audience.
Yes.
And if it's your wife may be allowed to go back to you, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
to upkeep public image.
Yeah.
And if it's
But
your
one of,
daughter, she will become one of the handmaidens in the palace.
well, I mean,
Handmaidens.
who can forget the story of David in the Bible? Who can forget that story? Yeah. When he sent the woman's husband, looked out the window, saw this fair maiden, and decided that's who we want, and he sent the woman husband off to war. Huh? And
And the king can do that. The king can
yeah,
send you off to war
yeah,
and make sure that the war is a very virulent war
yeah,
and instruct his generals that you should be on the front lines,
yeah, yeah.
defending king and the country while your wife stays home and gets an audience with the king.
Yeah, but of course.
Did I chop off my head a long time? My mouth too hot and I say, come off with his head.
You may have adjusted.
No.
You may have adjusted.
No.
These days people ain't adjusted.
I ain't adjusting, no adjusting then. No. Speaking of adjusting, Finance Minister Colin Imber is reaming mad with Dr. Roger Hussein.
What happened?
Throwing all sorts of barbs about Dr. Hussein's commentary about the IMF report and consultations recently in Trinidad and Tobago. And Minister Imber outlined this, and he's right, that a lot of good news, favorable news to Trinidad and Tobago was contained in the report, to be fair.
Okay.
But Dr. Hussein chose to focus on what he considered the salient point. Let me just make sure I get it. Yeah. He said that the data showed TNT is having a 4.5% reduction in real GDP growth in 2023 compared to 2022. Right? Minister Imber put out over the weekend and outlined several of the good news points, which is it's quite a lot of favorable outlook for Trinidad and Tobago in terms of the energy sector rebounding and the liquidity in the financial markets and stuff like that, you know. So I guess they'll continue, but it's not new that they've had crosswords.
Yeah.
We should hear what Mariano Brown has to say. He's been usually generally critical of Minister Imber's management or handling of the economy. You know, and there's some independent thinkers out there who I guess can think. Silk is in the works for some attorneys.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wendell
graciously sent us the list, or the purported list.
Yeah, that's unconfirmed. I got it, and
the purported list of attorneys who will receive senior counsel status as allegedly advised by the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister returned from Barbados.
Well, he went for the weekend, so if he's returning, it has to be today, I guess. I doubt he would have returned on Sunday.
Are you guys hearing me?
I'm hearing you.
I am hearing you, Steve.
You sound in the distance, though. You don't sound as crisp as you normally do. Yeah. So what else happened over the weekend? This weekend, of course, the Met Office got it wrong because they had predicted some bad weather coming in by 6 o'clock on Saturday, 6 p.m. on Saturday. It didn't happen. As a matter of fact, I didn't see one drop of rain over the weekend. The weather was absolutely perfect. Hot, steaming weather over the weekend. And apparently all the events that happened over the weekend were indeed very successful. The David Rudder show was sold out, I understand. The concert at the Savannah Redemption was also crowded. And the Point Fortin Borrowed 2 was also very well attended. None of which I went to. I wanted to go to all three, and I didn't go to any. I stayed home and, well, I stayed home. I just hung and that's it.
Someone is telling me they can confirm Lala, Raj Kumar, Prasad, Sean Heath, and is it Michael Commoner?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I suspect that list it looks plausible. It looks real. But only time will tell, you know. Because a lot of them are senior, very senior attorneys already anyway. You know? So.
Well, congratulations to whoever. It means they can up their price.
Well, yeah, they could, as one person was describing to me, he was telling me, an attorney was telling me how this thing works is that most senior attorneys have their own law firm, right? And this allows, because of the fee structure, this allows them to really, even if they didn't, employ a lot of young lawyers and help them through that process now to get work and to be successful and so on. You know, so it's like it's almost like,
people.
Yeah, you get a chance to.
But I saw a list with Stuart Young on it, which made me question the validity of the list because I mean it would be. You could imagine the kind of uproar you're going to have.
You know,
I'm not saying whether he's deserving or not. You know, I'm not making a judgment on that. But I mean, in our political environment, imagine Stuart Young on the list as purportedly suggested or recommended by the Prime Minister. You understand?
Yeah, I don't think that his name would create much of an uproar as much as maybe Faris's name would. You understand?
I think because they're both sitting members of the cabinet, and because in the past, Mrs. Prasad Bissessa had been criticized by some for quote unquote giving herself silk.
Yeah.
You understand?
Well,
I think, and again, I'm not saying whether or not he deserves it or Faris deserves it. That's the legal fraternity and whoever, to me, to decide what the quality of their work over the years and whether they deserve to be elevated, because it is an elevation. King's Council and Silk.
But let's face it, the issue with
you were saying?
The issue with Kamala Prasad Bissessa, Mrs. Prasad Bissessa, as Prime Minister, and the issue with Anand Ram Logan getting it within the first few months of their reign, I think that is what created that big uproar back then. I mean, they had literally just got into power. You understand? And they gave themselves silk as Prime Minister and Attorney General. You know?
And that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying whether or not Stuart Young or Faris would have deserved this or not. You know, I'm saying that the question about and the legal matter pending about whether or not it should be a recommendation of the cabinet, essentially the Prime Minister, the same conversation is going to arise. You understand?
Well,
because they're sitting members of the cabinet.
Yeah, I'm not saying no, but I'm just saying
I lost both of you all. I lost the audio for both of you all. Let me say good morning going out to Sabita. Morning to you, KM. Kazim Hamid. Yeah. All right.
Did he say he lost the audio?
Yeah. Locked on Rary out in West Palm Beach. Good morning to you all. All right. You guys back in? I can hear you all now. I don't know.
Well, I don't know. I'm hearing you. I'm hearing you.
The power feed lost
hearing you at all. Your lips are moving, but not hearing anything. I just lost you all just like that.
All right, let me message him.
I don't know what happened.
Let me message Steve. So then Steve will have to talk if we are not being heard by anyone else.
Steve has to relog the power feedback into the system. That's all.
Is he watching at the screen at all? Are other people out there hearing Paul and myself? Please message me.
They won't, because he has to relog the power system back in.
But I'm surprised I didn't get a slew of message. Hearing all on YouTube, not on direct.
We keep talking as if we're on. Yes.
Well, Ruben is saying he's hearing everybody on YouTube, but not on the direct stream.
Wonderful. So we'll keep talking for YouTube. Yeah. So we'll see how it goes. Certainly, silk is something that attorneys look forward to, because it elevates them in the profession to a different level,
Yeah. I'm seeing an article just came up a while ago that Denise Plummer is battling cancer. And a benefit concert is planned for her. This is something that, it's almost like if every day now you're hearing some other news about someone else battling something, it's really is very sad, So all the best of and our prayers and hope goes out for Denise Plummer. Okay.
Yeah.
So we are being heard on YouTube. So I hope Steve fixes it. So good morning to all the listeners and viewers on YouTube. We're here. We're trying our best to sort out our technical issues so that you don't hear any crosstalk, because what you might hear is Steve cross-talking us from time to time because he's not hearing us, right? So we apologize up front for that, but we're going to get it fixed soon enough. Not hearing you, Paul. Okay, so if you're not hearing me or Paul on the direct stream, it might be worth your while to switch to YouTube. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry to hear about Denise Plummer. Nice lady, very talented, and
Yeah,
she's a
I
former
was going to
Calypso
say that.
monarch
All right,
and
go
former
ahead.
Calypso queen.
I'll just let you all know that I lost internet connection at the office, so I'm using my laptop to do a fancy thing
You
to
see,
bring you all on
he
here.
lost internet connection at the office. Yeah, so
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no internet
that's
here.
why it's originates at,
That's why.
at home
Yeah, but
base.
I'm getting Wi-Fi, so I don't understand. So anyway, same network. Yes, Denise Plummer. I was just reading. Has a concert on this Saturday. I don't know where though. Um, to raise funds. She has stage 4 cancer. I don't know cancer of what, but she's such a
Hmm.
wonderful lady.
Stage 4 is quite advanced and
Yes,
scary.
it is. It is.
Yeah, it's quite advanced. I mean, when mom had cancer, we found out at stage 4,
Mm.
so we dealt with it immediately,
Yeah.
both locally and internationally. Yeah, I have no internet in the office.
All right. So the people who were saying that they were not hearing us, they're saying they're hearing everyone now.
Yeah.
Right. So good morning once again. Our
Yeah,
apologies as
yeah,
we experience some technical difficulty, internet issues.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I did a fancy thing, so I don't know how you guys will hear me.
I'm
Um,
hearing you all right.
okay.
Paul, you're
You
hearing
guys can let
Philip.
us know as well. Yeah. Morning, Pang Jazz. How are you?
All right. As I was saying earlier on, the weekend turned out to be a hot, steamy, sunny weekend. No rain, as was predicted. So hopefully, we're going into an extended dry season. So be mindful out there, people. Be mindful because it
Um, Over in the US, sadly, another
mass shooting.
shooting,
So
another mass shooting, and you almost don't know when it will end. When will it end? I mean, it seems like almost every week now there's a mass shooting every week, and the gun lobbyists don't seem to understand. They keep
Well, there's two
deflecting.
Paul. There's the shooting where 8 people lost their lives in a strip mall, and then there is an individual that plowed into people as well. I don't know how many people died there though.
I
Well, there's a
generally,
shooting and an incident where a car rammed into people
At a bus
in
stop.
Brownsville. They have not determined whether or not that one is deliberate, but the shooting clearly is. So they're still investigating. Uh, the 8 people have been killed in the driving incident when the
So it's
cars struck in the
5.
group at the bus stop.
Yeah, news this morning was saying it could have been deliberate because racial slurs were made afterwards by the individual. So,
by the individual who plowed into the people.
no, the driver of the vehicle.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm being told that Dr. Rowley is heading to Washington, D.C. this weekend.
Oh yes, he's being conferred a doctorate by Howard University.
Yes.
Yes, that is true. I think I would have shared that article over the weekend. He is one of 6 or one of 5 people, I think, being conferred with a doctorate by Howard University this weekend. Where is the story? Ooh, I shared so many stories during that time. Right? Okay, I'm not seeing it. Right? So he is to
And then
become.
the other things you share too, so you get confusing after a while.
Yeah, no, in this group chat, there's so many different things. There's so many different articles coming. But there are some nice articles over the weekend. I would have shared them with you guys. One written by what's his name? When Chickens Come Home. By
Noble Phillip.
Noble Phillip. Yeah, that's a very, very good article. It's worth reading in terms of what's happening in Trinidad and Tobago and what's happening worldwide. and the fact that we have this is something that didn't just happen overnight. It's been happening for a while. You understand? And we allowed it. Of course, he touched on that issue of the racist comments and the fact that this is not a race problem. This is not a race issue. We have had criminals from all walks of life. You understand?
Well, as I said last week about the pundit, even when he responded, and in my opinion, tried to scale back his comments as the media interpret this, and he's not a racist, and on one hand he's saying he's not a racist, and the facts are the facts. I think if someone has a racist tendency, it will come out in what they say, and I still stand by what I say. His comments were divisive and racist, because anybody could see what they want in whatever if that is part of the mindset. So
Yeah.
my view on his comments and his mindset have not changed. He's a very articulate man, so he's very good at spinning and deflecting and bobbing and weaving, but it is what it is. And he's gotten condemnation from the Prime Minister, from the Leader of the Opposition, you understand?
Yeah.
And several other prominent persons in society. So, I mean, if your comments have been perceived by so many different people in such diverse groups as racist and divisive, you gotta check yourself.
Yeah.
You gotta check yourself. If you could pretend how much you want, you know kind of what you wanted to say.
Yeah.
You understand? No, you know kind of what you want. You know what you wanted to see.
Right. So
Because every group in this country have been victims of crime. Crime is committed by all sorts of groups, and there is a tendency also to look at a particular type of crime in Trinidad and Tobago, but we do look at all the crime in the same way. You understand?
Yeah.
Particularly when it comes to disparity in prosecutions of white-collar crime and blue-collar crime. And I'm not saying one is more profound than the other, because one impacts the other significantly. But that pundit knew exactly what he wanted to say, and he received the right response from the population.
Yeah.
Which is condemnation.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know how he thinks this conversation helps anybody, the urban youth along the east-west corridor. It's not him and it's the other person saying all kind of foolishness like that.
Yeah, he said that. But in Noble Phillip's article, he pointed out about the Crime and Problem Analysis Unit of the TTPS, which collect data from every police station. And
I bought a book for them.
Oh, nice. He says
I bought a book for them.
Yeah. He says the El Socorro Aranguez area developed as a result of its proximity to the Caroni Swamp and its use as a trafficking route. Illicit drugs under the cover of the Caroni Swamp were stored and entered from this area into the east-west corridor. Specific Indo-Trinbagonian businessmen in the area funded this trade. Naam Naya and Teddy Mais Khan were simply the front men, the visible public fall guys for the secret financiers. The young victims were the barrel children at the time and in junior secondary schools. Their mothers were scratching out a living in a foreign land. Do we remember the role of former Police Commissioner Randolph Burrows and a slew of non-Africans who controlled and set up the drug trade in our country? We have long closed our eyes to wrongdoing for the sake of money. We never questioned blatant money laundering, and here we are now. In the Ryan report, Indira Rampasad argued that the notion that young black males alone constitute at-risk youth is erroneous. Carlos Bar in the Aranguez area is famous for the 2008 killing of Merlin Kojo Alambi, who was lured when two East Indian friends, Rafiq Puna Mohammed and his common-law wife, Rosanna Simangal, were killed there. Mohammed, uncle of Shahzad Teddy Mais Khan, lived in Chaguanas. Crime knows no skin color nor respects any community, but we stubbornly refuse to admit it. He said our country is a minute player in the global drug trade. Our climbing homicide rate is caused by increasingly violent gangs fighting over various criminal economies. Our geographic location restores us as an ideal transshipment point for cocaine between Guyana, Venezuela, and Europe. As it was under Burroughs, so it continues today.
You know what's interesting about that?
Very well written article.
all the criminologists, all the commentators, the data in the past 20, 30 years has pointed to the point that the issue is gangs fighting for drug turf. But we don't seem to be able to stop the drug turf, the drug transshipment at all. Like we have accepted it, you understand? As part of what it is. And everything else is collateral damage. And again, it keeps me coming back to law enforcement and the ability of the state to protect the borders. And that's what it is. Rusty Brown has commented because one of his friends died in the Santa Cruz massacre, to call it, where people ran into the bar in Santa Cruz and indiscriminately shot people. They don't care anymore because law enforcement seems incapable of, with all the talk. We have a new crime plan again and dismantling the gangs, and every commissioner has the same playbook they're reading from, but they're not succeeding in it.
Yeah.
You know? They're not succeeding in it to any great level. And then this Brent Thomas thing is not helping the police credibility at all, because the more you hear about it, the more scary it sounds regarding the police actions in that case.
Yeah.
You know? And someone was telling me over the weekend, a very learned legal person, that the question arises, and I happen to mention, did the police in Trinidad and Tobago and or in Barbados, their colleagues in Barbados, take Mr. Thomas before a judge in Barbados before bringing him back to Trinidad?
Yeah. Well, we'll be speaking, I think, with Omlala today, because I have some questions I want to ask.
We are.
I have some questions I want to ask in terms of Mr. Thomas's episode in Barbados. Did Mr. Thomas reach out to his attorneys when he was detained in Barbados? What was he arrested for in Barbados, right? Because he would have been arrested in Barbados by the Barbadian police.
Well, according to the court document, a slew of possession of weapons, apparently he wasn't licensed to be in possession of. I think this is part of the allegation.
Was it that he was in possession of them in Barbados also?
He may not have had to be in possession in Barbados. The issue with him is in Trinidad and Tobago.
Right. So
I think the items were seized in Trinidad and Tobago.
Right.
So the issue, the legal issues are not Barbadian issues; they're Trinidad and Tobago jurisprudence issues.
But he would have been arrested in Barbados. What was the basis of his arrest in Barbados? And did he, when he was in Barbados, attempt to prevent him, or did he voluntarily go on a plane with the authorities and get back here? Those are the things.
How do you voluntarily go on a plane when you're arrested, Wendell?
Right. So that's the point I'm making, Paul, is that you could have, and I'm assuming that he didn't, because he came back to Trinidad, prevent his removal from Barbados. Attorneys could have done that. So I don't know if that any effort was made.
And who are the attorneys? That's why I asked the question. Was he given the opportunity to appear before a judge or magistrate? So even if he called his attorney, if you're not taken before a judge or a magistrate to make an order about the action, the attorneys would they make a difference?
Right. So I'm piggybacking on what you said. If those are the parts of the story that's missing, what happened whilst he was in Barbados? Those are the parts of the story that's missing. Because and
the other thing that's come out too is, my understanding is that, because I missed some days of news, the Commissioner of Police has launched an investigation.
Where? Here in Trinidad?
In Trinidad and Tobago.
I haven't heard any.
I heard that the Commissioner has launched an investigation because I think the Prime Minister called for a report. Not so?
She did. Right. So I'm not.
Well, the only people could give the Prime Minister a report is the police in Trinidad and Tobago, because they were involved in the incident. Not so?
Right. They can't give any report on anything happening in Barbados.
And the PCI, I understand, is also involved in doing its own investigation.
Yeah.
So can the police, if the police in Trinidad and Tobago were involved, launch doing an investigation?
Well, I was reading an interesting exchange between
given the damning statements of the judge about this scenario. The police could really investigate and do a report on this?
As I say, I was reading an interesting exchange of attorneys on Facebook, an attorney you might know, and they were saying that in the event of there being in the event there, this is one of the articles, the Eichmann case that they posted. In the event of there being no extradition treaty between the states involved, it is a matter of discretion, sometimes described as committee, for the addressee of the demand to decide whether to comply with the request or not. Should the kidnappers be aliens, difficulties will arise. Normally, expulsion orders against aliens are effected by returning the aliens concerned to the state of which they happen to be nationals. And this will probably not be the state from which they removed their victim. If the kidnappers have returned to their home state, the addressees may be completely unable to comply with the request if no extradition treaty exists.
I have one question. I have one question to the commissioner. Were you aware this operation was taking place? That's the only question I have. Commissioner, were you aware and did you authorize this operation? You see, there's a presumption that the commission, because in the past there were operations, and remember the state of emergency where Gibbs and Iwanski did not know?
Yes.
Right. That's the question I have for the erstwhile commissioner. Did you know? Were you aware of this operation taking place? Okay. If you knew, did you authorize it?
It's going to be interesting coming up. And then they may just bury the story, Paul. You know how
I don't think so at all. I don't think the story is going to be buried because it involves another state.
Okay, we'll see.
You understand? No. This is not. It's a court matter now, so there's no burying in this. It's about whether or not we will get to the bottom of who initiated and who step by step was involved and who authorized. You understand?
Yeah,
is another matter. But I don't think the story is going anywhere anytime soon, and it should not.
Well, the fact that
depending on how the outcome and the facts that come out, it is a very frightening episode.
Paul,
frightening.
Paul, the fact that it's still a court matter because it's gone to the appeal court. That's where the burying will happen. Trust me.
Well, I'm not making that statement. It's Minister 7 we went over. Let's go through the papers.
Yeah, you go ahead. I don't have any.
Right. It is Monday. Right. You're back now. Right. Welcome back.
Okay. I don't know.
We were lost again?
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Power is back on stream for the app. So welcome back. We apologize for the little break there because we had an internet issue.
All right. So I don't know what I did. I just, when in doubt, restart. So let's get a headlines. If we can zip through headlines, then we can get into our morning pool.
All right. I'm just going to do a cursory look at the headlines. It's Monday, 8th May. I start with news. The angry Imber slams UAE economist Roger Hussein. Cricket legend Lara reacts to triple murder in hometown. Lara hurting over crime. UAE economist responds by scathing attack from Imber. Let's have a public discussion. Of course, Jamaican reggae artist Buju Banton begs TNT end the crime and bloodshed. And 3 shot by guard at Point Forte in grocery. Let me move quickly now to the Trinidad and Tobago Express for today, Monday. Served for 17 attorneys and a picture of President Christine Kangaloo, who is expected, according to the Express, to deliver silk to the attorneys. Rudder signs off in style. It was a fantastic concert with guest appearances by Marshall, Cass, Destra, Voice, etc. I am hurting, says Brian Lara. Facebook imposter strikes again, pretends to be court megastore worker. Woman dies by suicide after pepper spraying relative. We move now to the Trinidad and Tobago Guardian. Well, I hope you're thinking of a question, because I'm rushing through this because we are a little behind time.
Sure.
Right? And in the third major daily in Trinidad and Tobago, come Guardian. It takes a while for the Guardian to load.
Yeah, check your phone. It's on your phone.
It's on my phone. What does that mean?
That's any headlines for you on your phone.
Lara, I'm hitting over crime in TNT. 15 lawyers stood for senior counsel, including Leonard Sabre and Sweep. Gatsby Dolly to address non-payment of salaries for substitute teachers. UNC Senator mid-year review must have better plan for VAT refund. Gopi Singh questions legal briefs of president's husband. And Homework Center for Marabella Children. So those are the main stories in your Guardian Express on Newsday for today, Monday, May 8th, 2023.
All right. Well, let's get the results of our morning poll from Friday, where we asked you, do you think Minister Hines should apologize to the judiciary? That was our poll on Friday. Final results, 62%. 62 said yes. All right. 62. All right. Let's get to this morning's poll.
All right. I guess we could, there's several options to poll, but we could do the issue of what the last discussion we would have had.
Or should the list, because there are some who are suggesting that the list for Silk should have been delayed pending the court issue related to it.
There's a court issue.
Or do you agree with Silk being suggested by the cabinet? Nominees for Silk recommendations from Silk being because the question is about the separation of powers, where the cabinet in people's minds should not be involved, because it has been a tradition that the prime minister and the cabinet nominate the recommendations to Silk, not so?
Yeah.
Yeah, so should recommendations be removed out of the purview of the cabinet?
People making everything an issue now under this PNM government. Anyway, well, let's go with
it. It was questioned even under the People's Partnership, based on the imbroglio coming out of the appointments then.
It was?
It wasn't. Okay. It's not only an issue now. Yes, it was.
All right. I'll take your word for it.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So the question is, should the appointment for Silk, senior counsel for attorneys, be taken out of the hands of the cabinet? Mm-hmm. Yes or no?
Yeah.
Or should remain in the hands of the cabinet? Decide how you want to phrase it.
Yeah. Well, okay. We could ask.
It should remain in the hands of the cabinet.
Yeah. The appointment of Silk. Should it remain in the hands of the cabinet? Yes or no? That's our question this morning.
Toll-free North Americans, 866-525-1099. Of course, on our message board via YouTube, our mobile app, and our website at power102fm.com. Good morning to Sankofa. Good morning, Dennis. Good morning, Rampage. Good morning to you all. All right. Yes or no?
Mm-hmm.
Yes or no? Yeah. So should recommendations of senior counsel remain in the hands of the cabinet?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's our poll. Of course, next hour we'll chat via telephone. Attorney-at-law Omlala, a good friend. All right.
Isn't he supposed to get one too?
His name isn't on that list.
His name, okay.
Different Lala. That's Larry Lala. I think that is
Larry Lala. Okay.
I don't have a copy of the list, so I don't know. But I heard you mention Larry Lala. Mm-hmm. All right.
Right. So should recommendations for senior counsel for attorneys at law remain in the hands of the cabinet? Yes or no? That's a question this morning.
Yeah. Good morning, caller.
To talk.
Good morning, Steve. My answer is no.
All right. Thank you, Dinsley. Ish out in Malik says no. Piggy Ray says yes. Good morning to Leonard Naipaul. Good morning to Jacqueline. H.S. William. Good morning. Okay. You can vote on our poll. Mr. Carapo says no. GB in Trinity City says no to the poll. All right. 222-8255. North Americans, 866-525-1099. Kazim Mohammed says no via YouTube. Launch Park says no. Trev in Arima says no. All right. Let's see. Trevor Panton says yes. All right. Once again, our morning poll.
Should the selection of silk remain in the hands of the cabinet? Yes or no?
Yeah. Simple question. Yes or no?
Have a look. All right. That's our question this morning. Of course, it is all connected to a purported list that has come out for attorneys who will receive silk. I think it's 16 attorneys on the list. It's a mixture of attorneys. It doesn't. Well, everybody looks for politics and everything, but I want to tell people. I want to. Huh?
Derek says yes. Tomasas.
Derek Tomasas, morning, Kush.
Lorna. Morning, Lorna. Carly Indy. Note to the poll. Wayne out in Simcoe, Ontario, Canada says yes. All right. Jacqueline says no. Jacqueline, in fact, good morning to you. All right, you're saying something, Wendell? We have a minute again for your votes. Well,
No,
2
I was
minutes.
going to tell people. They have some keyboard warriors. I call them keyboard warriors. Men only want to post all the negativity or comment all the negativity. Don't do it on my statuses. I don't allow it. Right? I don't allow insults and disrespect on my statuses. Make your own post if you have something bad to say about someone or something. Make your own post. Don't come on my post and do it. Right? I generally have fun on my Facebook page, or I share information, and I certainly share political information. Don't come with your insults and disrespect on my statuses. I will remove it. Okay? I reserve that right to remove any insulting, disrespectful statement on my thing. Critique me, oppose me if you want, but don't disrespect me and insult me.
Rena Boodle Jennings says no. Josie Richardson, good morning, Josie, says no. All right, let's see. Any more votes coming through? 222-8255. Give a minute again. Toll free North Americans, 866-525-1099. Of course, our poll is going to stay up until tomorrow morning.
Now, let me repeat that poll. Our question is, should the selection of silk remain with the cabinet? Yes or no? Do you believe it should remain with the cabinet? Yes or no? So if you're saying yes, it means that you're agreeing that the cabinet should select. If you're saying no, it means that you believe the cabinet should have nothing to do with the selection of silk. Okay? So should it remain with the cabinet? Yes or no? That's our question, right? And of course, you can vote online or you can simply call in. We like to hear your voice a lot of times, We like to hear different voices, which we've been getting a lot of lately. So we don't mind the same voices calling in, or add to that, we have no problem with it, right? We just like to hear you.
All right, we have a call. Good morning. Good morning.
Grandy, no.
All right. I think over the weekend too, the US would have issued a statement on COVID testing and so on requirements.
Yeah, I think May 11, you don't need to be tested to travel to the U.S.
Yeah.
More guest says no, it should be removed. Mega Mo says morning, no to the poll. Carol Guevara says no. All right.
You know, I'm reading a story here on people reclining seats and it caused a bacchanal in an airline. I think airlines need to stop that reclining seat thing. All right, Steve, I'm seeing you talking, but I'm not hearing you.
Yeah, I wasn't talking to you.
Sorry. Yeah. Yeah, I think they need to stop that reclining seat thing. Stop it.
What?
Just ban it. Stop
And what?
seats from reclining in airlines.
No, I can't sit up upright all that time.
No. It causes too many discomfort to other people.
Well, maybe the angle then in which you can recline it needs to be adjusted.
Something needs to be done. Something needs to be done because it is. I hate it when people push that seat all the way back on me, especially sometimes when you're eating, when you're having something or you're reading something on your tray.
Oliver Man Warren says no to the poll. Yeah, I just think they need to readjust the angle. Imagine you're flying to London and you can't adjust the seat. Oh gosh, no. Oh no.
Yeah. Just if you want to rock back, go in a row with more leg room on thing. You come in them little tiny economy seats and play you could stretch out. And some people do it almost immediately upon sitting down on the plane.
I usually wait till they take off. And then I usually take the aisle. And
But
then
I always
there's
take
a
the
way
aisle.
to
I can't stretch out
raise
my
the
seat.
arm in the aisle seat. There's a button underneath that you can press that you can pull it up and makes it a little more comfy for you. Yeah. All right. Ms. Maloney says no. All right. Yeah, Ms. Maloney says no. All right. Well, let's get into our major news. Yeah. KK is in this morning. Yep, he's in. That's Gregory McBurney. Let's get into it right now on this, the 8th day of May.
This is your news bulletin from Power 102 Digital.
Cricket legend Brian Lara voices concern over crime in Trinidad and Tobago. President awards silk to more than a dozen attorneys despite legal imbroglio. Minister of Finance responds to what he terms negative statements from UWI Professor Roger Hossain. And 8 people have been killed in the U.S. state of Texas after a car struck a group at a bus stop. Details in a moment. Good morning with your news to this hour on Power 102 Digital. I am Gregory McBurney. Cricket legend Brian Lara has expressed concern with the levels of crime in Trinidad and Tobago. He says one contributing factor is financial worries which may affect many young people on the islands. Young people from low-income families may feel pressure to engage in criminal activities to earn money or support their families. This, he said, invariably leads to involvement in drug trafficking, gang activity, and other criminal behaviors. Lara, in a press release, said, quote, the absence of parental figures or positive role models can leave young people vulnerable to negative influences and peer pressure, which can then lead to criminal behavior. He made his comments after witnessing via social media videos the death of his childhood friend, Brian Perus, who was among 3 persons shot dead in a bar in Santa Cruz last week. President of the Law Association of Trinidad and Tobago, Lynette Seabrand Sweet, as well as attorneys Leslie Ann Lucky Samaru, Larry Lala, and Rajiv Prasad, are among several in the legal fraternity tipped to be appointed senior counsel. This also includes a senior female official from the Office of Director of Public Prosecutions and a long-standing technocrat, the Deputy Chief Parliamentary Counsel. There is concern in the legal fraternity, however, that this is being done in spite of the fact that there is an interpretation writ pending before the court for a declaration that it is unconstitutional under the doctrine of the separation of powers to make such appointments. The appointments are made by the President on the recommendation of Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley. President Christine Kanglu is expected to bestow the silk status this week. Unwarranted, erroneous, baseless, and unfortunate. This is how Minister of Finance Con Imbert has described statements from University of the West Indies Professor Roger Hossain regarding the recently published IMF 2023 report on its consultation with Trinidad and Tobago. On May 1st, 2023, the Executive Board of IMF concluded its consultation with TNT and considered and endorsed the appraisal of its staff on the Trinidad and Tobago economy. The 2023 report was subsequently published on the IMF's website. Minister Imbert said that Professor Hossain claimed having a 4.5 reduction in real gross domestic product growth in 2023 compared to 2022, but he says this is inaccurate. Mr. Imbert said this statement by Professor Hossain is fallacious and appears to be a product of his own imagination. Meanwhile, Professor Hossain has since responded, calling for a public seminar by the Ministry of Finance to discuss the facts surrounding the true state of this country's economy in the face of the recently published IMF report. Hossain, speaking with the Newsday, said he was not about getting involved in bacchanal, as he reiterated that he specializes in research. He also called on the Finance Ministry to, quote, have a seminar and elaborate on all of the various structural gaps in the economy at this point for the benefit and improvement of all the people. You are listening to the news to 7 a.m. on Power 102 Digital. 8 people have been killed in the U.S. state of Texas after a car struck a group at a bus stop close to a shelter for the homeless and migrants. The incident happened in the city of Brownsville near the Mexican border at about 8:30 yesterday morning. At least 5 other people have been injured, some of them critically. The driver has been arrested and charged. Brownsville police say it is not clear whether the incident was intentional. Earlier U.S. media reports quoted police as saying that it appeared to be a deliberate attack. And now for a look at the weather forecast. For the period today until midnight, Trinidad and Tobago fair to partly cloudy, hazy and breezy conditions with a few isolated showers favoring the morning and early afternoon. There will be a hazy night with a light breeze. There is a moderate concentration of Saharan dust present over the area, so persons who are affected should take the necessary precautions. Seas are moderate with waves up to 2 meters in open waters, less than 1 meter in sheltered areas. The forecast maximum temperature for today, 32 degrees Celsius in Trinidad, while Tobago will see a high of 31. Currently, it is 27 degrees Celsius in Trinidad and raining in various parts of the country. And it's also 27 degrees Celsius in Tobago, but clear on that island. And now to recap the headlines. Cricketing legend Brian Lara voices concern over crime in Trinidad and Tobago. President to award senior counsel status to more than a dozen attorneys despite ongoing legal imbroglio. Minister of Finance responds to negative statements from UWI Professor Roger Hossain. And 8 people have been killed in the U.S. state of Texas after a car struck a group at a bus stop close to a shelter for the homeless and migrants. Well, that's what's making you news to this hour. I am Gregory McBurney. Good morning.
Up to date and credible. Power 102 Digital.
All right. Thank you so much, Gregory McBurney, for our major news. Of course, we have a news brief that's going to come 8 o'clock this morning. All right. Quickly, before we get the results of our morning poll and before we bring our esteemed guest online, Attorney at Law Lala, let's take a look at what's happening traffic-wise. It's a bit sticky this morning. Starting on the east, going through Santa Rosa towards O'Meara. You got some traffic coming out of O'Meara onto the highway. Also a bit busy. Traffic again on the eastern main road from Arima Old Road in various spots. Golden Grove Road is heavy. Coming out Trin City is heavy. Kelly Village and Piarco. Coming out of Chaguanas. That is pretty heavy if you want to take the Southern Main Road. Volume from Endeavour to Chin Chin Road and towards Ibis Gardens, you've got traffic, all right? Take a look at, head down San Fernando, see what's happening there. Usual routes. The creek's got some bypass. Wow. Golaconda Connector Road, Corinth Road, San Fernando bypass heading to Marabella, but not too bad heading northbound. You're really going to get your traffic northbound from Charlieville. Rivulet Road and Couva Main Road a bit busy, but your traffic again starting from Curup into Port of Spain. Eastern Main Road equally heavy in various spots. Coming out of Maraval, Mocha, and Oradago, please take note of what is going on with that new road infrastructure. That is a temporary, but they put up a traffic light and while they do some work. I understand they're working 24/7 except for the weekends, which is a smart move. You got some traffic there. All right, take note of that. All right, guys, let's get the results of our morning poll, and I'm going to check to see if I have any more votes for you. Yeah, nothing new. Let's say, hi guys, says Ms. Maloney on YouTube. Good morning, Ms. Maloney. All right, let's get the results of our poll.
All right, so this morning we asked, should the appointment of Silk remain with the cabinet? Should the cabinet continue to appoint senior counsels? 4 said yes, 16 said no. All right, 4 people said yes, the cabinet should continue to confer Silk, and 16 said...
the cabinet doesn't confer Silk, the cabinet makes recommendations.
Well, recommendations, yeah.
So the vast majority think it's that practice should cease.
Yeah, pretty much.
Which I agree with, quite frankly. You know, let a committee of legal luminaries, preferably people who have had Silk already, you understand, come together. I guess the cabinet can make recommendations, the opposition can make recommendations, and they choose from betwixt, and they come up with their list. Because who better than the Bar Association, Criminal Bar Law Association, etc., Civil Bar Association to come together and decide among their colleagues who would be worthy of that and eliminate any potential for political bias, you know? Because it's coming out of a particular cabinet. And avoid all the old talk in the future about who should get, who should give this up, who shouldn't give this up, you know? Or simplify it.
The fact of the matter is that regardless of who does it, is going to have issues. Trinidad is just tiring.
Yeah, but you could say that and you could move it one step closer out of that realm. And you will always have somebody saying something, but you could take steps to move it a little step further out of that realm.
But don't bother me as much, so.
Yeah.
I know that.
All right. Well, gentlemen.
Let's get Silk, as long as I don't have to hire them to bust no fees on my tail.
I have Silk. I have a few.
You have Silk drawers.
There are plenty very competent attorneys who don't have Silk.
Yeah,
that's true. That's very true.
And that's a good segue into my next guest, Attorney at Law Lala. Good morning.
Hi, morning, guys. How you all doing?
We doing good, man. We doing good. How are you? It's been a while.
I'm good. Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah.
Morning.
Well, morning. How are you, man?
I'm good, thanks. How are you guys doing?
Morning, Mr.
Pretty
Lara.
good.
Can't complain.
Would you care to weigh in on our poll this morning, which is, should recommendations for senior counsel for attorneys at law remain in the hands of the cabinet?
Well, I mean, it's an interesting poll question, and I know it's before the court also, so Law Association and Criminal Bar also are weighing in on it, so I'll leave it for those to make a decision or give their perspective on it.
So, do you agree with me then, that there are plenty competent attorneys at law who do not have Silk? Do you agree with that statement?
Yeah, no, that's a fact. I mean, remember the bar now, you have almost 350 lawyers coming out per year. It's very different than maybe 20 or 30 years ago when you had 30 lawyers coming out. So the whole bar has changed, and also the practice of law has become much different than in the old days of just pure civil and criminal. There's so many different divisions of it. And the law has evolved, and I suppose as to competence have evolved in different areas.
Mm-hmm. What's the purpose of conferring silk, though? At the end of the day, is it just about fees? What is it really?
Well, fees is an important part for lawyers, obviously. But what it is, it's a recognition of being accomplished for a high level of competence. And it is, in England, it is determined by a committee upon application and review of your conduct, your integrity, your work. In Trinidad, it is a determination of the cabinet who really makes a decision based on whatever they have in front of them.
Mm-hmm. But this is my next question. Does it mean then that people who have silk stand a better chance in front of a judge than people who don't?
From my experience, I haven't seen that. I mean, they would get the obvious recognition of holding the title, but most of the judges who don't have silk or did not get silk before even becoming judges are pretty fair in terms of their assessment of what is before them. It boils down to pure competence. And if you have a high level of competence, you're able to persuade a judge.
Because that's a good point. We have so many judges who are legal luminaries who never got silk.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the judges have not received silk before entering practice. In England, for example, you might find judges getting silk and then entering the judiciary. But again, here you have very bright, independent, competent judges. But none of them, very few of them have ever received silk before entering the profession of the judiciary. And many of them have very good academic judgments and distinguish themselves. So again, it's a debatable issue.
So a lawyer shouldn't be concerned whether the person on the opposite end of the bench has been conferred with silk.
Well, I mean, it's something that will concern people. I mean, normally it is the larger companies would be the ones who are really making those type of determinations. But, it is the problem we face in Trinidad is how does the general public determine who is competent and who's not. Lawyers aren't able to advertise. There's no grading mechanism or measurement to determine who in fact is competent and who is not. So that still remains a problem for the answer.
Well, the grading is who win cases.
Well, remember, not every case you're going to win. There's some unwinnable cases. It doesn't mean if you lose a case, you're not competent. I mean, there are cases that it is really the quality of representation you give, because you may lose, let's say, a criminal matter, but mitigate in such a way that your client gets a reprimand and discharged because the facts are so terrible. Again, it remains difficult for the public to determine, look, if they have a particular issue, who to go to. It still is based on recommendation and referral and the old traditional mechanisms of determining who might be the best person.
And very often, name brand recognition, even if you can't advertise.
Yeah, exactly. Because we have not crossed that hurdle of advertising, even partially, although it's been debated.
Do you think that should be something we should consider, the ability for attorneys at law to advertise?
Well, in a measured, very controlled way, yes. You want to know who the criminal lawyers are, who the maritime, who the insurance lawyers are. People don't really get up one day and hope to have a legal problem. A legal problem arises in a particular area. And if it does happen, just like how you can probably find out who doctors are in particular spheres of competence quite easily, it's not that easy in the law.
Yeah. All right. We want to move to the substantive topic this morning. This issue of Brent Thomas and his arrest and return to Trinidad and Tobago by the TT Police Force, and the judgment and the subsequent appeal of that judgment by the state through the Attorney General. Walk us through, from your legal expertise, the initial judgment from, is it Judge Devendra? Is it Rampasad?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Please walk us through your impression of that judgment as a starting point for our conversation, please.
Well, Brent Thomas had been first arrested by the police regarding an investigation into firearms, which the police had concerns that may have been illegal or he not having the proper requisite licenses. Bearing in mind that he's a licensed firearm dealer for over 35 years. So the police conducted the exercise. They raided his house, his premises. They made certain observations, and subsequently he was arrested. The lawyers representing him filed a habeas corpus, which is really an application to the court that if you don't have any charges, delay that the person be brought before the court, bring the body before the court, and let a judge make a determination whether or not the detention should be continued. In this particular case, the court made a determination that there were no charges expected to be laid based on the evidence put before the court, and he was released. Upon his release, he took a decision to go to Miami, and that decision, I'm not completely certain whether it was communicated to the police or not, but there were no charges laid at the time. He was not threatened of charges. He left the country and went to Barbados. In Barbados, he was then arrested and detained under conditions that left a lot to be desired in terms of how the police conducted themselves, breaking down a door, arresting him, apparently putting him in the back of a pickup truck for 12 hours without food and water in the open air, and then whisked back to Trinidad. In Trinidad, then he is detained for another probably 2 weeks, where charges are laid against him. There are several search warrants that were taken by the police during the period of time, eventually resulting in his charges before the criminal court. What the court took into account was whether or not, based on the evidence before the court, in terms of the evidence relating to the documentation he had for possession of the firearms, whether or not he acted lawfully or not, and whether the police actually were in contravention of the law by laying charges where there was clear evidence that he ought not to be charged. And the other issues of a constitutional nature that were dealt with were whether or not the police in fact erred in terms of their arrest, their detention, the modus operandi in Barbados, and whether or not his fundamental rights under the Constitution were encroached. Now, the court, Justice Rampasad, in reviewing the evidence, this would have been a constitutional and judicial review application, would have heard submissions from both sides, had affidavit evidence from both sides, the police and Brent Thomas himself, and came to a conclusion that there was sufficient evidence that he ought not to have been charged, and accordingly stayed the charges, that his right to infringe the way in which the search warrants were executed. And in fact, the conduct of the TTPS acting in this extrajudicial way outside of the jurisdiction was wrong. And he has made his ruling on that basis in a very detailed judgment and raising serious issues. One of the issues which affects all citizens is the way in which justices of the peace grant warrants for the search of premises with little or no evidence. And he's made a recommendation that the Justice of the Peace Association take note of his judgment. Now, the state has filed an appeal on Friday on several grounds, the primary one being that the local court has no jurisdiction for the conduct of the police or the Bajan police or the conduct of police in Barbados, one. And then secondly, that they felt that there should have been a greater review of evidence to come to the determination, and that the decisions made insofar as breaches of the constitutional rights were improper. So it is a matter that is going to be subject to review, but the facts remain very alarming and concerning. And I think one of the major issues that remain unresolved is the whole incident in Barbados, which is something that has caught the media and public's attention for quite some time.
What was the basis, though, of his arrest in Barbados? I'm trying to follow that. I'm hearing that he was arrested in Barbados, detained for 12 hours in the back of an open pickup truck, and then transported to Trinidad. But what was the basis of his arrest in Barbados? What law did he break in Barbados to be arrested by Barbadian police?
All right, well, let's first define arrest. Remember, arrest is when you are detained and you are deprived of your right of freedom of movement. Now, when he left Trinidad, he was subject of a habeas corpus application, which was to determine whether charges were to be laid or not. He was released on the basis that there were no charges. He goes to Barbados as a free man with no charges laid. Obviously, I mean, I'm speculating that the lawyers who filed the application and the lawyers who represented the police in the habeas corpus application would have been in communication with each other. So there would have been a line of communication. When Thomas, from the evidence, has been a seller of firearms legally to the police and the army for 30 or 40 years, so he would have had a direct communication. He's not a person unknown to the police. So his leaving to go to Barbados, if the Bajan police arrest him, they must arrest him based on an arrestable offense committed in Barbados.
Right.
Failing which, they would arrest him if there was a request for extradition. Now, the evidence showed that there was no legal basis to arrest him, only that the police wanted him back in Trinidad to continue the investigation. When he was brought back to Trinidad, he was subsequently charged for offenses that the court has given a stay on.
Right. Put up in there. Let me ask a question based on what happened in Barbados. What should be, in that circumstance, a typical, considering due process, a typical procedure for Mr. Thomas's rights to not, constitutional rights not to have been infringed in Barbados, even if he's the subject of police interests in Trinidad, and the police in Trinidad and Tobago are collaborating with the police in Barbados, because that is what clearly would have had to happen. What would be typical due process in Barbados for this to evolve?
Well, typically, you look at the categories of the situation. Is the person charged and running from the court? Are they on bail? Are they a suspect in a matter? Are they meant to be fleeing the jurisdiction? Are they uncooperative with the police? Those are factors that are taken into account very early to make a determination how it's dealt with. But typically, just as in Trinidad, so let's say if we use Trinidad as an example, if the police, let's say the US was looking for someone, they would first make connection with Interpol, with the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. They would make a request for the individual, let's say, who's a fugitive, and the person could be arrested or detained by the Trinidad and Tobago Police, who would have full jurisdiction over him. And then an application would be made through the courts for extradition of the person. So it's a full legal judicial process that takes place.
Right. So the person has the right to appear in court to as part of the process to deal with this request for extradition. Has any of the information indicated that Mr. Thomas was granted that opportunity?
Well, from the evidence that I've read in the judgment and the newspapers, the answer is no. And I mean, we have seen so many cases in Trinidad of applications for extradition, many before the court still, and how the process runs. And the reason for that, obviously, is a simple legal principle of due process taking place. And also, there are the international laws that apply in terms of respecting the sovereignty of countries, that you don't want to walk into a country and just take people as you see fit. You want to at least allow the law of that land to make a determination as to what is their process. Now, we are unaware of what the AG has launched an investigation and the Commissioner of Police in Barbados. And again, Brent Thomas would be open to file action against the Bajan police for the...
In the absence of that due process, because the judge used a very strong word, abduction. Some people have even said, going so far as to use the word kidnapping. Do you think that actually applies because of the lack of that due process, that aspect of due process?
Well, in the absence of evidence to the contrary, if you come to take someone out of a country without following the rule of law, then it would amount to abduction or kidnapping. So, I mean, for example, we use the U.S. as an example. If they were to come and fly a plane, grab somebody, bundle them in a plane and take them off, it would be international news of abduction or kidnapping of an individual. It is really the circumstances, of course, that those words to be used. Now, of course, if the Minister of National Security or the Prime Minister or the Attorney General or the Commissioner of Police were to come forward and say, well, look, there was due process. This was the process followed. We were in collaboration. This was an agreement. There's a secret mutual treaty that allowed us to do this. Then, well, by all means, those would be inappropriate words. But in the absence of it, it leaves a lot to be speculated. Bearing in mind this matter has been ventilated before the court, the state filed affidavits and it never raised those issues. So that's why it leaves it open and fertile ground for comments to be made about the detention and his abduction, as the judge referred to.
Well, what is my concern? I'm still trying to piece together what happened in Barbados. And were any attempts made by Mr. Thomas, or was he given the opportunity to contact an attorney when he was detained in Barbados? Were any attempts made by him to prevent his removal from Barbados? And since it happened, has any action been taken by Mr. Thomas against the authorities in Barbados?
But from the evidence that is before the court, he was not given the opportunity to contact his lawyers. And it happened within a 12-hour period, which is a quick span in terms of a process taking place. This is not him being arrested and detained for a week in Barbados, where applications could be made for habeas corpus in Barbados, and a judge would have released him in those circumstances. Mm-hmm. This is arrest, detention, and removal. It's an extraction exercise, mm-hmm. which is different than the normal process of a person being arrested, taken into custody, and then the dialogue takes place with the police and an application is made to the court to make a determination. I am also unaware of whether he's filed action in Barbados, but I'm certain he should, because the legal rights that have been approached allows him to file action in Barbados against the police. I suspect he's waiting to hear publicly what the Commissioner of Police and the Prime Minister of Barbados have to say on the matter before he files action.
When did this incident actually take place?
This happened last year, I think October or November last year, if I'm not mistaken.
What are the implications for international law? Because, I mean, we all have our local jurisdictional law, but there are international laws and conventions that countries abide by.
And more so, we're a member of CARICOM. And what this really does, it will raise the issue among CARICOM and also for the international community. What is the modus operandi of the police service in Trinidad in terms of how they treat not only citizens but foreigners? And remember, we rely heavily on foreign investment in terms of oil and gas sector. We are very keenly trying to get international investment in the country. And this is something that foreigners and foreign investment agencies or businesses look at your modus operandi of your judicial system, your police, your crime rate. Those are all public indicators in terms of how you do business. So the international implications really is reputation damage to the country. And until it's dealt with sufficiently that the international community looks in and says, well, okay, well, either it was a mistake or there was due process, it was lawful, it damages our international reputation because there are so many breaches of the law that have taken place.
Well, appeal has been filed, and that process will have to go. So how long do you think that process will take place?
Well, we know how efficient the court is. I mean, if you're going to do an appeal, hearing that might take you a year, then inevitably this is going to reach the Privy Council. So maybe 2 years, 3 years before the court makes a final determination on it. And that's just the process that we have to go through. But there are many important issues that affect the citizens in terms of, for example, search warrants, multiple search warrants being taken, where the law provides for all firearms dealers. The police have a right of inspection at any time under the Firearms Act. And when you habitually go before justices of the peace without any evidence, as this case demonstrated, and get search warrants, it's improper. So this is something that happens on a daily basis to citizens in the country. The JPs have become rubber stamps where the police will come and say, I'm going by John Brown, I think he have guns. They have no intention to look for guns, and the JP issues the search warrant for your house. The police don't show you the search warrant, they don't explain. They are never held accountable, very rarely held accountable for search warrants. And many people's rights are encroached, but they don't have the ability to file actions before the court. They don't have the wherewithal to take on the system. And until we get matters like this ventilated, the guidelines are created that properly allow a determination of how the law is to be implemented and where rights are infringed, we still have the problem that exists, and the average person faces the brunt of police brutality on a daily basis. And there are many cases before the court. I mean, if you log into any magistrate's court link and you see the amount of complaints raised, or even you speak to David West, you'll see how many incidents take place. But again, most of the people who are taken advantage of don't have the ability to challenge the system.
Yeah.
Right, judgments like this are important because it's not only Brent Thomas, the firearms dealer, who has the ability to challenge the state. It's what about the small man who they come and say, I don't like you, search warrant, wreck your house, the neighbors watch you, they take you, lock you up for 3 days, release you. I mean, it's a costly exercise to challenge the state to file for wrongful detention. It takes a year, 2 years. The state comes with the might of their lawyers, many being senior counsel, obviously. And they'll challenge the small man who literally will say, look, it's not worth it. And how do you define a system that the public, the average person feels confident that when the police come with me with a search warrant, they've followed complete due process and have nothing to fear, and they allow me to see it. And if I'm detained lawfully and not because we have a big problem with crime in the country and everybody favors the police because anybody the police deemed to arrest or charge is deemed to be a criminal. So again, I look at it from the bigger picture of the average citizen.
And I think that's the important issue here. And people, when this issue is being discussed, people automatically sometimes believe, well, you're on Brent Thomas' side. I have no idea what the issue with Brent Thomas is. The issue is about due process and the importance of that in protecting citizens' rights.
Yeah. And you just pointed out exactly what is wrong and rotten about this place. And every police commissioner we have interviewed, we told them, if you cannot fix the police service, you can't fix crime in this country. If you can't deal with what's happening in your own service of good officers and bad officers, and I'm saying good officers and bad officers because a lot of good officers there turn a blind eye to what the bad ones are doing. They go on these raids, they go on these exercises, and they know something is wrong, and they say nothing. And that is what is wrong with Trinidad and Tobago. I'm sorry to say. It is wrong.
And you're right. My entire career, I have done cases where police have advantaged people, and there's no repercussion. Even if you win a case against the state, you and I pay for it as taxpayers. The police don't pay for it. They're not managed, so they'll come back out and tell you, do me something. And we praise the good police officers, but the bad ones make it difficult. And I see so many cases, because as you know, I do a lot of pro bono cases. I see a lot of cases where individuals are so intimidated and taken advantage of wrongly, but are terrified to take on the system. And that can't be right when you want the country to have faith in your police service. We keep making apologies that, you know, crime is high, the police are good, they're all good people. Everybody who makes a complaint is bad. But you can't fix this until you get to the root of the problem. And people like Brent Thomas are lucky that they have the ability to run it in court. And forget who Brent Thomas is. Let's look at the law. Let's look at what we have to say now. The Privy Council is going to determine in terms of all of our rights when we're detained.
Yep. That's what's wrong in this
So
case.
when you know about Brent Thomas citizens about the rights of every citizen, and I think that's what people need to understand. You know, it is not making a determination about the innocence or guilt of Brent Thomas and the charges laid against him. It is about whether the process was followed properly. And you know, the issue of whether the police are good or bad in this. This was a TT police service operation. It wasn't a police officer's operation. Am I wrong?
And I'm correct, and I think the newspaper said yesterday that this is a special elite unit of the TTPS that engaged in this activity. Now, if you have elite unit engaged in this kind of activity and it's condoned, you have a major problem on your hands, because the average person looking on in, if they'll do a big shot like Brent Thomas, that will do me. And that's a perception that a lot of ordinary citizens face. And you can sometimes look at the simplest of matters for a traffic ticket or a family matter or a neighborly dispute, how matters are treated with. And it very often leaves a lot to be desired. And I'm telling you from personal experience in dealing with these matters, year in, year out. And we have crime escalating. We're all frightened. But it's also frightening when the police conduct themselves in a way that leaves citizens very, very nervous.
Yeah.
Well, and that's why the ventilation of this is important, and the eventual outcome. As you said, this is going to go to the Privy Council, essentially, and we'll see what happens. But because of the then protracted process involved in that, we move on to 16,000 other things.
Correct. And again, this, like Trinidad 7-day wonder, will be swept under the carpet until there's a Privy Council decision in 3 years. And the police will continue with impunity to act. Citizens' rights will be taken advantage of. And so be it that we're tolerant as a country and we allow these things to take place. And, you know, unfortunately...
But the implications for that are also dire, because you want the public to have confidence in the police. You want the public to partner with the police in fighting crime. And this doesn't help that when there are questions about whether process was followed, appropriate process was followed.
Exactly. Crime can only be fixed in this country if there's collaboration with the public and the police and they're working in sync with each other. You can't have the public fearing the police, even to give information. I did a case recently where, the police was dealing with a matter. My client was a victim, but the scenario that was created, he decided, look, I'm not going to lay any charges because the police clearly had a link with the person, you know, who was the alleged perpetrator. So people leave and they tell their neighbors and their friends and people, look, don't trust the police. It's better to stay away. You see something, don't say anything. And if that continues, then you end up in a situation where people say, you know what, I'll just stay in a blind constantly. And the information that the police so desperately need will never come to them. And it's only if you're in dire need will you ever call the police.
You know,
I'm one
of those people now. I have, because of what I've, and I know plenty good police officers, because of what I've seen and experienced, I have zero confidence in police. Zero. And I mean I've seen good police officers do nothing about bad situations. I have zero confidence. Not that I don't think that they're needed and I won't have to call them if but I hope never to have to call on a police officer to assist me again.
Let me ask a question, Om, in a related question, because it's a topic of discussion for many years in this country. In your matters with your clients, is body cam evidence a common thing or even a thing that's brought as part of the evidential package by officers in the courts?
Very rare, and more particularly if the allegations of abuse of the police or wrongdoing, definitely not.
Isn't that telling when there are 1,200 supposed body cams in operation?
there's so many, there's decades of telling evidence that we've seen. I remember as a young lawyer, every murder case I did, the only evidence they had was a confession. They beat it out of the man, you do a voir dire, statement thrown out, matter done. That has not changed very much today, so that you have not built confidence over the years. We've not done a proper examination. We are apologetic for the police. We are sympathetic towards them. We don't take the bull by the horns and say, look, there's a serious problem. The country people don't have faith in the police service, and you only lose real faith in them until you interact with them and see what they're made of, you know. If you're a law-abiding citizen and you never deal with the police, well, you'll automatically assume they're all good. You cross them with a traffic ticket or anything up the ladder, and you see a different side to them, it'll change your mind. Lawyers like me who are in the system every day, I mean, you become almost biased in your thinking because you see more bad than good in terms of their conduct.
That's not good. One of the recent points of controversy in the public domain is the statement by the Minister of National Security, Fitzgerald Hines, that criminals have friends in Parliament, in X, Y, and Z, and in the judiciary, which is brought condemnation from the Law Association, the judiciary itself. What are your thoughts? And their questions last week that Minister Hines should apologize or bring evidence to support his claim?
Well, remember, if, let's say, any one of us get charged, we have the confidence that we're going before an independent court, an independent judge, or we file a matter for whatever. We trust that the judiciary is an independent arm that will always give us a fair hearing and treat with us based on evidence. If we as the members of the public hear an experienced by the number of years, lawyer, who is Minister of National Security, who would be privy to information that we would not be privy to, makes a bold statement that criminals have connections in the judiciary, the average citizen would be left thinking, well, he's a man in the know. He ought to know what he's saying is probably correct. Now, you go before a court, you're not going to have that level of confidence because you're going to start wondering, is the judiciary corrupt? The judge ruled against me. Did the other side speak to him? Was there corruption? Is this judge favoring the state? And that's why when you hold high office and you make statements like that, it damages the judiciary. And remember, judges are very limited in the way in which they can make public comments on matters. So a national security minister says basically, I have nothing to say, I'm not apologizing, it is what it is. Forget what the intellect say and the lawyers and the AG says, well, it could be interpreted a different way. It comes back to the average citizen. All that matters is the average citizen, because it is their rights that are always encroached upon in ways that they have no recourse. If they now believe, and they believe Minister Hines is an honorable man, top national security minister, advisor, with evidence, could say something like that, what does it say about our judiciary? And how do you then defend the judiciary? So in a first world country, if a minister wanted to say something like that, it would be said with evidence, with an investigation, with some consequence to it. But it's just said loosely. And again, you fail the police service. People lack confidence in it. I mean, whether or not people have faith in the government, and government, when I speak generally, government, you want to always, and I speak as a lawyer, you want to always have the faith that the judges are fair people. And that's where the danger lies. Because it's the man charged for the little weed or the traffic offense or jumping the neighbor fence or getting a fight, now thinking, but the minister say them corrupt. How am I going to treat that judge now?
No, let's look at the other side of that coin, and I'm not endorsing this statement by Minister Hines in any way, but the examination of institutions, including the judiciary in Trinidad and Tobago, and whether or not the judiciary and the police and the Bar Association and the Law Association are self-regulating, because we all know humans are prone to vagaries, and in every institution there will be one or two corrupt persons. Do you think the statement opens that investigation in a productive way, or should it be opened as we are suggesting, if somebody in that position makes such a statement, provide the evidence, because it also opens the question, it started conversations, I should say, about past judgments. People started bringing up Brad Boyce, quite frankly, and whether or not all institutions there are particular institutions that are sacrosanct, or that we should be examining all institutions in the country for potential corruption.
Well, quite frankly, if you and I make the statement, maybe we could get away with it. But if a national security minister makes that statement, a very bold statement, well, yes, it warrants an investigation based on the evidence he has, because I'm certain he wouldn't make a statement like that without evidence. And it can't be historically, because the innuendo was it was related to this matter. And again, do we just sweep it under the carpet and say, well, no big thing? If it is that there's an investigation and there's evidence, I, for one, would say investigate it, launch it, because you want to do everything to preserve the independence of, especially the institution of the judiciary. So that is a very serious matter. I mean, I'm looking at it unfold. The judge has requested that Minister Hines comes before him today. Minister Hines is taking legal advice whether he actually needs to attend or not. So again, we'll see it unfolding. But I'd be very worried that if Minister Hines has that evidence, and that evidence he's relying on it, and nothing is done about it, that is even more serious.
Yeah, leaving in Hines. Morning, Ragobarsingh.
Yeah, morning, Richard.
Hi, good morning, guys. Sorry for my late entry into the conversation.
Were you going to get your gong for Silk? Your gong iron?
I did not see my name on that list, so no.
I could saw Richard something. But probably not. Yeah. It's probably Rajiv or Ragnar.
Okay.
Yeah. But to be fair to Minister Hines, and I'm not trying to defend him in any way, he did indicate that it's police, defense force, immigration, customs, even in parliament, that criminals may have friends. You understand? So where do we draw the line in separating the judiciary from the rest? How do we separate the judiciary from the rest?
Well, we have the Police Complaints Authority that deals with corruption or wrongdoing by the police. We have the Professional Standards Bureau that deals with allegations of corrupt police. The only institution that can deal with allegations of the judiciary is the Judicial and Legal Service Commission, which is empowered to deal with allegations of that. So if you have an allegation, so we have seen many examples of cases against the defense force going before the court, the police, the customs. I haven't seen in my recent recollection of any matters of these type of allegations being referred to the JLSC. And if they were, they'd be there. So and that is the remedy if the minister has evidence. If it's criminally corrupt, certainly it goes before the police. If there's moral wrongdoing, it goes before the Judicial and Legal Service Commission. Yeah. So unless there are matters before these commissions, and I mean we're all unaware of it, then well, that's where the danger lies.
So you're suggesting that the statement is okay, except that he shouldn't say the judiciary. He shouldn't include the judiciary.
No, the point is, if he's making
provide evidence,
specifically the judiciary, if he's saying that there's corruption in the police service, there's enough evidence in the public domain to justify those statements with regard to the police and defense force in terms of allegations that are made on a daily basis. Now, you as Minister of National Security clearly have the evidence he has courts closed, put it that way. He knows what he's saying. He has the evidence. He is privy to evidence that the average citizen will never be privy to. Now, if he says it of the judiciary, then the presumption is he has the evidence that allows him to say that. And the question then arises, now that you have the evidence, what are you doing with it?
Yeah. You don't think he was just being a provocateur?
Well, knowing Minister Hines, I think he was just being provocative, sadly. I think he was...
Yeah, but being a provocateur and raising questions about the integrity of the judiciary, I mean, and keep in mind he's a politician. There are implications to statements like that, as Uma was saying.
I come back to the average citizen. There are people who would swear by Minister Hines, believe in everything he says, and are huge supporters of him. You believe him and say, listen, that man is spot on. They wouldn't see the political innuendo or the poetic license he's probably trying to run with, but they'll take it to heart. The minister says so is so. How does that help us advance as a country when we're already in crisis in so many ways?
Yeah, which is strange enough, and now that Richard is here, was the position Richard took Friday that I didn't oppose.
Because the position I took was that it is not helpful to Trinidad and Tobago in 2023 when two major arms of the executive and inclusive the separation of powers are in a tense relationship so very publicly. So you have the judiciary in one arm saying, well, you need to apologize. And then you have a Minister of National Security saying a particular statement that very much is in a public forum that is showing that there is a tense relationship between these two very powerful arms of the executive. And it doesn't help us. And it doesn't help the crime situation where you would want the state to be in a united front. It doesn't help. It is wrong on so many levels. And what is the big deal in just saying I apologize?
Mm-hmm.
What is the big deal? Just move on. At least in terms of that.
Agreed. And this is not a difficult time to get all hands on deck to deal with crime. You would have no opposition from the average citizen to join with the police and the government in terms of fixing crime, because criminals now aren't respecters of political party, or everybody's under siege. But if your narrative just creates further division and fractions, it doesn't help us achieve what we all want to achieve, is a safer, better place.
Exactly. We don't have confidence in the police. We have little or no confidence in politicians and on either side of the aisle in many cases, and now the judiciary too. So I mean, institutions just being eroded.
It's frightening for the average citizen to look.
Judges, and in addition to all of this, judges still have to be forthright and independent in how they see any particular case.
Yeah.
As I would have indicated on Friday, we're not in the 16th century where what the mood of the country is between a particular person that's charged. If the country feels they're guilty, we are long past that. It's on the evidence presented to the court, and judges have to be fearless and have to be independent, even if their judgment goes against public opinion. That's what they are required to do. They're required to have independent oversight of the evidence presented before them. And all of this starts to, people start feeling, because, Trinidadians and Tobagonians have a way when they say, yeah, I feel guilty. Look at that face, that man guilty for sure. That man guilty.
Everybody, cousin, uncle, sister, brother was involved too.
Yeah, that's not how the decisions are made.
Yeah.
And so there has to be a level of discourse in the society about this entire issue that lifts the level of understanding of the importance of the territorial marks between each individual office and what it means to be a judge and to be king of your court.
All right.
We're out of time. Thank you so much. I appreciate your contribution this morning as usual. Be safe. Enjoy your Silica 2 this afternoon.
Thank you. Have a good one, guys.
All right. Lord Lala, thank you so much for being on the Power Breakfast Show.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen. Interesting conversation as usual with Om.
It's always good talking with Om. Always. And I didn't get to apologize to him for missing his little shindig the other day.
All right. Oh, that was a while back, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did convey your apologies to him.
Right.
But the rate's going down, so I know you had other business.
Yeah, I did have other business that day.
The rate's going down at the palm, so.
Yeah. They going down?
Well,
so
he said it with full confidence, so we have
didn't he?
He said with full confidence. We just have to go with it. It wasn't even like a stutter. Oh, I think they're going down,
Yeah.
Well,
they're going down.
I would have thought that the little piggy would be very quiet this morning because he's tired, but 8 o'clock.
Them blinds behind the head looking palmish. What them blinds behind the head?
That's why you sleep out.
Them say that cheap blinds you have behind the head.
That's why you're peeping out to see him come.
No, people don't know if the police coming to arrest and detain me and extradite me from the whole of the space.
All right, gentlemen, we got to run into 8 o'clock news. Let's do that right now. Gregory McBurney is in.
This is your news bulletin from Power 102 Digital.
Good morning. Here's what's making news headlines to this hour. Attorney at law